Hello everyone and welcome to Math Meets Code. This is repeated subtraction, part 1. So our math goal for this project is we want to be able to find whole number quotients of whole numbers with up to 4-digit dividends and 2-digit divisors. And we're going to rely on a strategy based on the relationship between multiplication and division to make this happen. So I'm going to give you an example of what this could look like when you're done. So the user hits the play button and the user is presented with a dividend, a divisor, and a blank quotient. And we're going to ask the user how many groups of the divisor that he or she wants to take away from that original dividend. So for example, the user could say 10 groups of 60, press OK, this will show the multiplication, 60 times that 10 groups equals 600, and then over here we'll have a running log of all of those groups of the divisor being taken away until the user gets down to 0. So for example, if the user enters 4, presses OK, we'll do the multiplication, it will subtract that remaining part of the dividend away, and then the user will be presented with the final quotient up here at the top. Okay, so let's get started. So we want to go a new project, and then we want a blank block project under game design. And then the first thing we want to do when our editor opens up is to give this thing a name. So we could call it repeated subtraction, or we could just abbreviate that to rep sub if you want. And then we're going to click the drop down next to the save button, and we're going to turn the auto save on. And then we don't need this actor that they've given us by default, so click the 3-dot menu, let's press delete. So that means all that we're left with is the stage. Now on the stage, we're going to take the onStart event because we want something to happen when the user clicks the start button, and we're going to need some variables for all the different parts of the division. So we need one for the dividend, the divisor, and for the quotient. But we're actually going to start with the divisor. So let's go to variables, and then we are going to create a variable. We'll call this variable divisor, and we are going to take the set block, and from the drop down, very important, click the drop down, click divisor. We're going to set it to a random value. So to get a random value, just go up to operators and then scroll down. There should be one that says pick random 1 to 10. If it's not here, just save it, reload the page, it should appear. But drag this over, and we don't want 1 to 10, we want a 2-digit divisor. So let's change this to 11 to 99. So that'll set a random value from 11 to 99. And now that we have the divisor set, whatever that is, we can use that to figure out the dividend. So our dividend needs to be evenly divisible by our divisor, and we can be sure that it's evenly divisible if our dividend is a multiple of the divisor. So let's create a variable, and we're going to call this one dividend. And then once again, we're going to take the set block, and then from the drop down, make sure you do this from the drop down, you want to select dividend. And if we want to multiply something, let's go back to operators, and then from the very top, I'm going to zoom in here. So we have plus, minus, times, divide. We want the multiply operator, the one with the star, so make sure you got the one with the star, should be the third one down. Drag this over to where that 0 is, and we're going to have to multiply the divisor times some random value. So let's do the random value first. It doesn't matter which bubble we put this in because of the commutative property of multiplication, but we want to make sure that we have it at least in one of those bubbles, and things could get a little bit tricky here because we need the multiply on the bottom, and then we need this on either side. Doesn't really matter. But once again, let's do 11 to 99. That should give us a 4-digit dividend. And then let's go to our variables once again, and we're going to use our divisor variable that was just set in the previous line. So now we are sure, because we're multiplying this random value by our divisor, that our dividend is going to be evenly divisible by the divisor. The next thing that we need is the quotient. So let's create a variable. Let's call it quotient. And we're actually going to set the quotient to nothing to begin with. So from the drop down, select quotient, and we're just going to delete the 0. Okay, and then the other thing that we're going to need is a running dividend, because this is like the partial quotient method of division. So we're going to be subtracting groups of the divisor from the dividend, and that dividend is always going to be decreasing, and we want something to keep track of that. So let's create a variable called running dividend. and then we're going to set our running dividend, at least at the very beginning. So from the drop down, select running dividend. We're going to set that to whatever the dividend is. So at least at the beginning, these two things are going to be the same. And then we're going to broadcast a message because we're going to create another actor that's going to need to know when all this stuff has been done. So let's go up to events, and then we're going to find the one that says broadcast. And then for the broadcast, we are going to type into this box just something like numbers ready. So that way the other actor knows when the numbers are ready. So that way this other actor can do whatever it's going to do. And now we're ready to create the other actor. So add actor, and we're going to use a text actor. So at the bottom here it says add text actor. And we'll just put a 0 here for now. This actor is actually going to be responsible for showing the user the equation. So let's click the name of the actor here, and then we could delete what it says by default, and we'll just call this actor equation. And we don't know what its label is going to be at the beginning, so we just have a 0 here for now. But when this actor receives that message that we broadcasted, this one says numbers ready. So now on this one, find the when I receive block here. When I receive, click that box, and you should see on the drop down where it says numbers ready. So select this from the drop down. When I receive numbers ready, we are going to set its label to something. Not 0, but it's going to be whatever the dividend is divided by whatever the divisor is equals, and then the quotient, which initially is just blank. So we're going to need to click the plus button here because we're going to need a few different variables and symbols and whatever. So we are going to set the label to our dividend. So go to variables. We're going to find our dividend, and then we want divided by. So you could get a division symbol. You could Google it, whatever, copy and paste. I'm just going to use a backslash for now because it's simpler. So space, backslash, space. This sort of means divided by, so we'll go with it. So dividend divided by divisor. So again, you want the variable bubble divisor, whatever the stage had set the divisor to randomly. And then this is very important. The next one, we want an equal sign. But if you just type equals, notice we get this expression builder. We don't want the expression builder. So to avoid that, click that bubble, type space, and then equals. And then you could type space again just so it's even. And then we want our quotient here, which initially is set to nothing. So if you have all that in there correctly, if you were to click the play button, you'll see that we have some value divided by some other value equals, and then there's nothing there. And then if you do this again, you should end up with different values every time because they're just randomly generated. Now, we're going to create another actor that needs to know when this is all done. So we're going to go back to events, and we are going to broadcast another message after this label is set. So we'll call this message, so click in the box here, we're going to type in update division. So now that that's all ready, we're going to add another actor. This time we're going to add a character builder, and you could spend some time figuring out what characters you want, but let's make this thing functional before I spend too much time on the appearance. So I'm just going to kind of choose something kind of quickly. And this is the actor that's going to be doing the asking. So we could name them something like asker because he made it asking, and then we could save that. And then this asker, we want him to do something after this equation's been set. So we're going to go to events, and then we want the when I receive again. And then from the drop down, if you click this box, we should see one that says update division. So when I receive update division, we want this asker to ask. And if this is stopped, so if it's playing, you're not going to be able to move him. But if you hit the stop button, you'll be able to click, hold, and drag this thing wherever you want him. That's probably a little bit too low, but wherever you want him. And again, you'll have time to figure this out later. Let's get it functional, but just kind of move him out of the way so we can still see the equation there. And we're going to ask the user. So to ask the user something, we're going to have to go down to the sensing menu. It's the light blue menu here. And under user input, we want the first ask, not the second ask, but the first ask under user input, the one that says, what is your name? And then it has the minus and the plus. But we're going to ask how many groups of the divisor that the user wants to take away from the dividend. So we'll just say how many groups, and then of space, so how many groups of, then we need whatever that divisor is, so click the plus button, and then we want our, under variables, divisors, how many groups of whatever the divisor is, and then click the plus button, so how many groups of divisor, and then space, do you want to take away from or subtract from space, and then we're going to need another bubble here, so click the plus button, and then we want whatever the dividend is. And not just the dividend, this is actually going to be the running dividend, because initially the running dividend is set to the dividend, so we'll have that full dividend, but then as we start taking groups away, that running dividend is going to decrease. So we'll take our running dividend and making sure that we got the right, it's not giving me the right spot, so I'm just going to scroll over. There we go. And then we could end this with a question mark, so hit the plus button one more time. Because it is a question, we'll put a question mark there, hit the play button, and it's kind of hard to see right here, but if I blow this up, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. Again, we could always make the font bigger, but how many groups of 19 do you want to subtract from 1,634? So far, so good. So let's go back. We're going to need another variable to store whatever number of groups the user puts in here. So under variables, let's create a variable. Let's make sure we do this for all actors. I don't know if it's going to matter later on, but we might need to access this from another actor. So for all actors, and then we'll call this just number of groups. And let's create. And we are going to set this variable, so find that set block, and then set blank to 0. Click the drop down, click number of groups. We want to set it to whatever the user puts in, so whatever the answer is. So to find that, you have to go back down to sensing, and then after that user input ask, there's one that the bubble says answer, so we'll drag this over. This will set it to that answer. And let's go back to variables, and I think initially we want to make sure that this number of groups is set to 0, so every time it tries to do its thing, we're going to reset that. So we're going to take another set block, and let's put it at the very beginning here, and from the drop down, let's do number of groups, and we can just leave that at 0. So it's going to reset every time. Now, we need to figure out the value of whatever the user is taking away. So for example, the user has a play button, and it's asking the user how many groups of 77 does he or she want to take away from our dividend. So if the value of whatever the user wants to take away is more than the dividend itself, that's kind of a problem. It won't work. I mean, we could underestimate with partial quotients division, but we're not allowed to overestimate. So we want to find the value, and we're going to create a variable for that value. And we'll just call it, since we're just multiplying the number of groups times the divisor, we'll just call it the product. So let's create a variable called product. And again, not sure if we'll need this, but click the check mark for all actors. So let's make this for all actors. We'll call this product. And we are going to find our set block here, and we're going to set from the drop down product to, and then the math here, to find the value of whatever the user is taking away, we're just multiplying that number of groups. So make sure you have the one with the star here, because we're multiplying. And I'll remind you, it's the third one down. If you don't see it here, you might need to save it, reload the page. But it's the third one down with a star because we're multiplying. And then under variables, we want to multiply the number of groups that the user just put in, or the answer, which is stored in number of groups, times whatever that divisor is. So hit the play button here. It's asking how many groups of 43. If I were to put in 10 groups of 43, we know that's 10 times 43, so the value of that is 430. And we should see that reflected in the product. So notice it says 430. And once we know what that value is, well, then we could check to see if the user put in too many groups. So let's go to control, and we're going to use a conditional statement, an if then else statement. So click, hold, and drag the if then else. And we want to see if the product is more than whatever is left in the dividend. So let's go to operators. Since we're checking to see if it's more than, we can use our greater than Boolean here. and this is the one where you have the alligator mouth open to the left. And if this product, so let's go to variables, if the product is greater than whatever is left in our running dividend, so we'll take the running dividend, put it on the other side, then we want to tell the user that that's too many groups. So let's go to looks, and then there are some speech bubbles if you scroll down, and we're just going to use a simple speech bubble that has, or a say block that has the time limit on it. So it says say hello for 2 seconds, but we don't want to say hello, and let's actually change this to 3 seconds just to make sure you got the right block here. So we need the one with the time, and we're just going to tell the user that is too many groups, period, please try again. And we're going to give the user a chance to try again. So if you hit the play button, it's asking how many groups. Well, if we try to take away 100 groups of 61, that's going to be too much because that's larger than 854. Can't really see what he says, but he says that is too many groups, please try again. He says it for 3 seconds, and then we're going to give the user a chance to try again. So how do we give the user another chance? Well, we have to broadcast the same message that he's receiving at the beginning here. So we could do that under events. We're going to broadcast. So after he says this thing for 3 seconds, we're going to broadcast that same message, update division, and it should go through this again. If not, we might need to figure something out, but let's just see if this works. So click the play button, tries to take away 100 groups. It's not going to work because that's 9,900. Too many groups, please try again. And there we go. So it resets, so it gives the user another chance, so then the user can put in something else, press OK, and if the user puts in something that's equal to or lower than the running dividend at this point, then we're going to have something else happen. So this time the user is going to be able to go on to kind of the next step in this process. So what we are going to do for now, we're going to say whatever that math is that we did up here, and then we're going to have to set our quotient, or going to have to update our quotient and our running dividend as well. So first of all, let's go to looks. We want our say, so same idea here, except this time we'll put that on the else side. And again, let's change this to 3 seconds just to make sure we have the right one here. And we're going to tell the user this math, how we figured out this product, how we figured out the value of the number of groups times the divisor. So let's click the plus button a couple times, and we want this to be whatever the divisor is. So if we go to variables, and we'll scroll up, find divisor, and then divisor space, we'll use the letter X for our multiplication symbol, and then space, and then want to multiply that times the number of groups, and we're saying this to the user, so the user can see how we got this product, how we got the value of the number of groups. And then once again, we want an equal sign, so very important, make sure you hit the space bar, then the equal sign, then the space bar again, and then we want to say what the product is, so click the plus button again, and then let's move the product into that last bubble, and then we want to update our running dividend and our quotient. So let's do this with a set block here. So take a set block, and we're going to set our running dividend to whatever our running dividend was minus the value of the number of groups. So in other words, minus the product. So we need our operators. We want the one that says minus, and take that in there. And under variables, we want whatever the running dividend was minus however many we're subtracting for the product. And then we also want to set our quotient, because our quotient is actually kind of a running quotient. It starts out with nothing there, but we want to increase that with the number of groups that the user is successfully taking away from the dividend. So once again, we want another operator because we're going to be adding to what's already in the quotient. So to do that, make sure you get the plus this time. So the one with the plus sign in the middle, and go back to variables. So whatever the quotient is, plus whatever number of groups the user successfully took away. And then we'll put that on there. And then we're going to broadcast another message for another actor. So the other actor is going to tell us that running log of subtraction. So for now, let's just go to events and let's broadcast. So take the broadcast out, put it at the end here, and we're going to broadcast message. I guess we'll just call it something like, I don't know, subtract. And then next time when we come back, we will set that up with the other actor to actually display that subtraction and to continue taking groups away from the dividend. So don't forget to save. Thank you.